At 7:30 in the morning on June 7, 2004, a 3-year-old girl's father woke to find his daughter gone from his own living room. He searched the house, he searched the yard, he called the neighbors, then he called the police. The police came, they took the father into a room, and over the next 14 hours, they did everything they could to make him confess to a murder they believed he had committed. He wasn't the killer, but by the time they were done with him, he said he was. This is the story of Riley Fox, and the 2 men who destroyed her family, one of them her own father's interrogators. They were so sure they had the answer that they stopped looking for the truth. Wilmington, Illinois, a small town on the Kankakee River, roughly an hour southwest of Chicago. The kind of place where families leave their doors unlocked and children ride bikes down the middle of the street. Kevin Fox had his 2 kids that weekend, 3-year-old Riley and her older brother Tyler. On the night of June 6th, he picked them up from their grandmother's house around 1 in the morning. Here's a detail that mattered more than anyone knew at the time. The kids' beds didn't have clean sheets on them, so Kevin laid Riley down on the living room couch and Tyler on the recliner. He went to his own room, watched television, and fell asleep a little after 2:30. The back door of the house couldn't lock. It had been broken for a while. It was one of those small, ordinary household problems nobody gets around to fixing. That door would decide everything. The next morning, Tyler woke his father. Riley was gone. Kevin searched the house, then the yard. Then he went to the neighbors. When no one had seen her, he called 911. Hours later, police found Riley in Forsyth Woods County Forest Preserve, a public park a few miles from the family home. She was face down in a creek. She had been bound, gagged, and violated. Then she had been drowned. Here's what you need to understand about what happened next, because it's the part of this story that keeps coming back to haunt anyone who looks at the case file. The man who did this didn't leave much behind, but he did leave a single piece of physical evidence that was enough to solve the case in an afternoon. It sat in an evidence locker unexamined for 6 years. 6 years. While an innocent man sat in jail, the answer was sitting on a shelf. The investigation had a suspect almost immediately. It was the man who'd called 911, Kevin Fox. There was no physical evidence tying Kevin to the crime. The science didn't support it, but the detectives had a theory, and they intended to prove it. They brought Kevin in for questioning. 14 hours, no sleep, no breaks. They told him the science had already implicated him. It was a lie. They fed him details of the crime and then, when he repeated them, used his knowledge as proof he'd done it. It's called a coerced confession. And it works because sleep deprivation and psychological pressure don't break a person's will so much as they dissolve it. Kevin Fox confessed to a murder he did not commit. He was charged, and he spent 8 months in jail, taken from his surviving son, convicted in the court of public opinion, his life dismantled piece by piece. If you're a fan of terrifying stories that are real, documented, and researched, you've come to the right place. Like and subscribe and keep up to date on all of our latest and scariest videos. Stay tuned, the next turn in this case is the one that still makes investigators wince. Here's where the case file starts to scream. At the scene, investigators found a pair of mud-covered shoes. Inside one of them, written in permanent marker, was a name, E.B., not Kevin Fox, E.B. The shoes were logged and filed away. Nothing was done with them. The detectives had their confession, and a confession they believed didn't need corroboration. The mud-covered shoe with a stranger's name written inside went to the shelf with everything else that didn't fit the story. They ignored other clues too. The same night Riley disappeared, a house nearby directly across the street had been burglarized. A screen was cut. $40 taken. Nobody connected it. Nobody asked why a grieving father, the man they'd arrested, would be burglarizing his own neighbor's home in the middle of the night. The pieces were all there. The detectives just weren't looking. Kevin Fox's case had one lifeline, and her name was Kathleen Zellner. Zellner is one of the most relentless wrongful conviction attorneys in the country. She obtained a court order for new DNA testing on evidence from the scene. It was saliva that had previously been deemed inconclusive. The new test came back. The DNA did not match Kevin Fox. It matched the name written inside the shoe. Kevin Fox was exonerated. He'd spent 8 months in jail for a crime he didn't commit, convicted on a confession he gave under duress, a confession the DNA proved was false. The family later won a $15.5 million civil verdict against the Will County Sheriff's Office and the detectives who'd coerced his confession, a verdict later reduced to $8.5 million. But no amount of money puts a 3-year-old back in her bed or gives Kevin back the 8 months of his son's childhood he missed. Scott Eby lived about a mile from the Fox home. He was on parole at the time. He was a man with a record, out on the streets again. This is his account of the night. He cut the screen of the neighbor's house across the street and stole $40. Then he walked across the road to the Fox home. The back door wouldn't lock. He went in to look for something to steal. He found nothing worth taking, and then he saw Riley asleep on the couch. He said later that he fixated on the little girl. He left the house, got into his car and backed into the Fox's driveway. He went back inside. He covered Riley's mouth, picked her up, walked out the front door and put her in the trunk. He drove her to a nearby park where he essayed her in a men's restroom. Then he unalived her in the creek. One broken lock, one unlocked door, one ordinary family problem nobody fixed in time. Scott Eby was convicted on 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of predatory essay. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In December 2023, he died in prison. And then there's the final cruelty of this case, the one that makes it hard to close the file. In March of 2023, years after he'd rebuilt his life, remarried, and started a new family, Kevin Fox died in a car crash in Arkansas. So in the end, 2 men destroyed this family. One, a predator, took Riley's life. The other, the system that was supposed to protect her, took everything else, her father's freedom, his name, and ultimately, piece by piece, his ability to go on living. That's the real horror of the Riley Fox case. It isn't just the monster who came through the broken door. It's the ones in uniform who convinced themselves the father was guilty and stopped looking for the truth that was right there in front of them, written in permanent marker, inside a mud-covered shoe.